Have you ever wondered why faith plays such a powerful role in shaping nations and guiding leaders? In times of uncertainty, faith becomes a pillar of strength and clarity, guiding decisions and inspiring unity. The recent elections in the United States reveal how deeply rooted beliefs shape society's course. But what can this teach us as individuals? What lessons are there in relying on faith during challenging moments? The Bible reminds us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. This ancient wisdom calls us to place our hope and understanding in a higher power, especially when worldly matters feel complex or disheartening. Today, we'll explore the role of faith in current events, grounding our understanding in biblical truths that have guided countless lives for centuries. In moments of political or social upheaval, many people turn to faith for answers, guidance, and comfort. The recent American election serves as a potent example of how belief systems influence decisions, with many Christian voters feeling a pull toward candidates who align with their values. It's natural to seek leaders who reflect our morals, but the Bible also encourages us to remember that true guidance comes from above. In Psalm 46:1, it says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." This verse reminds us that while we might look for earthly leaders to represent our beliefs, our ultimate trust should be in God's unwavering support. When we place our faith in human institutions alone, we may face disappointment or uncertainty. Human systems are flawed, but God's guidance is perfect and enduring. This understanding helped many find strength during the recent election cycle, navigating societal changes with an eternal perspective rather than a temporary one. In Proverbs 29:2, it says, "When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan." This speaks to the importance of wise and compassionate leadership that aligns with God's principles of justice and righteousness. Ultimately, our hope should rest in knowing that God's justice is unchanging and he works through all circumstances, even those that seem uncertain. In times of political division, it's easy to feel separated by our beliefs, but faith invites us to unity and understanding beyond human differences. Jesus reminds us in Matthew 5:9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." This verse calls us to be agents of peace, bringing compassion and understanding even in a divided world. For many people, the recent election highlighted a need to bridge divides and find unity in shared values, rather than in political stances. In times like these, faith provides an anchor, encouraging believers to stand firm in love and truth regardless of the political landscape. Ephesians 4:3 speaks to this, urging believers to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. This call to unity is not based on human agreements or ideologies, but rather on a divine purpose that transcends earthly debates. When we focus on God's purpose, we can foster a spirit of unity, respecting each other's beliefs while finding common ground in shared values. The strength of a nation or community is not only in its policies, but also in its people's ability to come together, supporting and uplifting one another. Jesus himself prayed for unity among believers in John 17:21, saying that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you. By striving for peace and understanding, we become lights in a world often divided by temporary matters, showing others the eternal strength of God's love. While political choices can divide, our shared faith in God can unite, reminding us that his love and guidance surpass any human institution. True change often begins not in the halls of power, but in the hearts of individuals who commit to living out God's principles of kindness, humility, and justice. As believers, we are called to be examples of God's unifying love, which brings us together even amid differences. One of the most comforting truths in times of change is the reminder that God's sovereignty extends over all earthly powers. Regardless of the political outcomes, believers can rest assured that nothing escapes God's control. Daniel chapter 2 verse 21 tells us he changes times and seasons, he deposes kings and raises up others, he gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. This verse reinforces that no leader holds power without God's allowance, and his divine purpose will ultimately prevail. Throughout the Bible, we see stories of leaders whom God used for his purposes, sometimes even those who did not initially acknowledge him. Pharaoh, Cyrus, Nebuchadnezzar, each of these leaders played a role in God's greater plan for his people. Romans chapter 13 verse 1 further reminds us, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established." This perspective frees us from fear and anxiety about earthly rulers, as our ultimate trust is in the King of Kings. When we understand God's sovereignty, we can view political events with a sense of peace, knowing that they are part of a larger plan. This does not mean we shouldn't participate or have opinions, but rather it reminds us to prioritize God's eternal kingdom over temporary political shifts. Psalm 75 verse 7 reminds us, "It is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another." With this assurance, believers can pray earnestly for their leaders, supporting them with the hope that God's purpose will be fulfilled. As followers of Christ, we are encouraged to look beyond present circumstances and trust that God's wisdom surpasses human understanding, and his ways are higher than ours, and his plans are for the ultimate good of his people. When we place our faith in his sovereignty, we find comfort in knowing that he is actively involved in the course of history. Our role is to pray for discernment, advocate for justice, and trust in God's ultimate guidance, remembering that in his time all things work together for the good of those who love him, as stated in Romans 8:28. When faced with turbulent events, it's natural to wonder about the purpose behind them. As believers, we are invited to look at challenges through a lens of faith, trusting that God uses every circumstance to shape us, grow us, and strengthen our reliance on him. James chapter 1 verses 2 to 4 speaks to this beautifully. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." This verse reminds us that even in difficult moments, God is actively working for our growth. While political events may feel unsettling or cause concern, they also present an opportunity for believers to grow in resilience, patience, and trust in God's plan. In Isaiah 55, verses 8 to 9, God tells us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." This perspective reminds us that God's purposes often exceed our immediate understanding, encouraging us to trust his plan even when we cannot see it fully. By embracing faith during challenging times, we allow God to work within us, transforming our doubts into a deeper trust in his wisdom. The world may prioritize power or influence, but God values character, humility, and obedience. The story of Joseph in the Bible is a powerful example of this. Sold into slavery by his own brothers and unjustly imprisoned, Joseph could have easily given up on his dreams. However, he trusted in God's purpose, and in time he became a leader who saved many lives during a famine. Joseph's story teaches us that God can turn even the darkest circumstances into something beautiful when we trust him. Through every challenge, God refines us, preparing us for the unique purpose he has for each of our lives. As we navigate uncertainties, we are called to draw closer to God, seeking his wisdom and strength. In Romans chapter 5 verses 3 to 4, we're reminded we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. This journey strengthens our faith, making us vessels of hope and resilience in a world that needs God's light. In a world often marked by division and hardship, believers are called to be a beacon of hope and love. Jesus himself calls us to be the light of the world in Matthew chapter 5 verse 14, encouraging us to let our light shine before others, so they may see the goodness and glory of God. This means that regardless of the world's circumstances, Christians are tasked with embodying God's love and grace, reflecting his character in everything they do. As ambassadors of Christ, we have the opportunity to bring peace, kindness, and understanding into every situation. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 15, Paul encourages believers to shine like stars in the sky in the midst of a crooked and depraved generation. This imagery calls us to rise above negativity, exemplifying the hope we have in Christ. Rather than conforming to fear or frustration, we can respond with grace and compassion, showing others a different way to live. One way to be a light in the world is by caring for those around us, just as Jesus taught through his example. In John chapter 13, verses 34 to 35, Jesus says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." This command reminds us that our love for others is one of the most powerful testimonies of God's presence in our lives. It is in the small acts of kindness, forgiveness, and generosity that we make a lasting impact. By choosing to be a light, we offer an alternative to despair and division. We become representatives of God's eternal kingdom, which transcends any earthly challenge. In Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 to 14, believers are urged to clothe themselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. This passage emphasizes that love is at the heart of our mission as followers of Christ, uniting us and allowing God's light to shine through us. As we reflect on these truths, let us remember that our faith has the power to transform not only our lives, but also the world around us. By embracing our calling as lights in the world, we help bring God's love, peace, and hope to those who need it most. In this way, we fulfill our purpose as Christ's followers, becoming living examples of his grace in a world that is yearning for true hope.